Good afternoon and welcome to special election night coverage on WMRT FM, Marietta College Broadcasting. I'm Cole Longcore.
And I'm Marilee Morrow.
Ohio's polls have only been closed since 7:30. This election has an impact all over the nation. Every seat in the U.S. House is up for election this year, along with about a third of the Senate. Control of both houses of Congress is on the line. Both are currently under Democratic leadership.
One of the key Senate races in Ohio, Democrat Tim Ryan is facing Republican J.D. Vance for Republican Rob Portman's seat. Ohio voters are also deciding 16 congressional seats, including Republican Bill Johnson's 6th congressional district seat. Johnson is facing Democrat Lou Lyris.
Ohio voters are also deciding several statewide seats, including governor and lieutenant governor. The race features incumbent Republican Governor Mike DeWine and Democrat Nan Whaley. Also, voters in Ohio are deciding on 2 congressional amendments. The first is for the courts to consider public safety when setting bail, and the second is to prohibit local governments from allowing non-electors to vote.
Belpre voters have a school levy on the ballot, and several townships in Washington County have several levies and an issue on the ballot.
Thanks for listening to our special coverage on WMRT FM, Marietta College Broadcasting. We'll have an updated regional numbers as they are reported and hopefully some final results for our area during our coverage tonight. Nationwide, a fierce competition for control of Congress, along with dozens of governors' mansions and key election posts, are unfolding as polls begin to close in several closely watched states along the East Coast. In Georgia, Democratic Senator Ralph Warnock and Republican challenger Herschel Walker are fighting for a seat that could determine Senate control. In Virginia, Democratic reps Abigail Spanger and Elaine Laurel are fending off spirited Republican opponents. The results there could serve as an early signal of the House majority is heading. The outcome of congressional races will determine the future of President Joe Biden's agenda and serve as a referendum on his administration amid record-high inflation and concerns of democracy.
Control of the U.S. Senate could depend on whether Pennsylvanians elect Democrat John Fetterman or Republican Dr. Mehmet Oz. Lieutenant Governor Fetterman spent much of the campaign recovering from a stroke while fending off attacks by Oz about his fitness to serve. In their lone debate, Fetterman turned in a rocky debate performance that fueled concern. It damaged his chances. Oz is a smooth-talking and wealthy heart surgeon turned TV celebrity who just moved from his longtime home in New Jersey. He barely won a primary in which opponents cast him as an out-of-touch Hollywood liberal. Pennsylvania polls closed at 8 p.m.
Speaking of the Fetterman, Oz race in Pennsylvania, Oprah Winfrey, a former proponent of Mehmet Oz, endorsed John Fetterman in the Pennsylvania Senate race. This key race in Pennsylvania could help determine whether Democrats retain control of the U.S. Senate or see a power shift to the Republicans. The race is extremely close. Democratic John Fetterman got a big endorsement from Oprah Winfrey. That's notable. She promoted Fetterman's opponent, Republican Mehmet Oz, for years on her daytime talk show. CNN's Randy Kane has more.
My friend and mentor, Oprah Winfrey. Oh, my goodness.
Long before Dr. Mehmet Oz got his own show, he was a regular on Oprah's talk show, making more than 60 appearances.
All these chemicals that get you going up because it's fight or flight, and something's coming at you, and you're either going to fight or you're going to run.
He held Oprah's hand on TV the first time she got acupuncture.
So as these needles go in, what they're really going to do is they're going to be placed near nerves. And as these nerves are stimulated...
When are they going in?
Not yet, not yet.
And awed her audiences with spellbinding demonstrations.
This is a female heart. You get to hold that one.
Okay.
It's about the size of your fist. And this is a male heart.
Oz appeared on the Oprah Winfrey Show from 2006 to 2011, during which the Harvard-educated heart surgeon became a household name.
All right, so I want to challenge you all.
In 2009, Oprah's company launched The Dr. Oz Show.
It's like my son grew up and has his own show. He left home. You're doing all right, son?
I am, Mom. I'm doing very well.
The program was a massive platform for Dr. Oz.
Whoa!
But it didn't come without trouble. In 2014, a study in the peer-reviewed British Medical Journal found that of the 40 randomly selected episodes from Oz's television show, his health recommendations were based on evidence just 46% of the time. But despite the criticism, the program drew millions of viewers and built a loyal following. But it wasn't enough for Oprah. Randy Kay, CNN.
Audience, I miss the people.
Fetterman and Oz are competing to replace the seat left vacant by Republican Senator Pat Toomey. He announced his retirement after serving 2 terms in office. Arizona Senator Mark Kelly is looking to hold on to the seat he won for Democrats 2 years ago, but he faces a vastly different political environment against Republican venture capitalist Blake Masters. Kelly has distanced himself from Democrat President Joe Biden and plays down his party affiliation. Masters has tried to penetrate Kelly's independent image, calling him a rubber stamp for Biden, who has failed to secure the U.S.-Mexico border and allowed inflation to run rampant. The Arizona race is one of a handful of contests that Republicans targeted in their bid to take control of what is now a 50-50 Senate.
Here's more on the Arizona races from CNN.
Thank you for being the tip of the spear. Let's go manufacture this red wave.
A Republican resurgence pledges Senate nominee Blake Masters in the final stretch, closing with this message.
They've made life in America, life in Arizona, more dangerous, less affordable.
That resonates with Evelyn Tinsley, small business owner, mom of 4.
A lot of things have changed since Biden has gone into office. Food has definitely gone up. It's crazy, especially with how many people we have.
What Tinsley does not worry about is Donald Trump urging Masters to lie about the election, like Republican gubernatorial nominee Carrie Lake.
Look at Carrie. Carrie's winning with very little money. And if they say, how is your family? She says the election was rigged and stolen. You'll lose if you go soft. You're going to lose that at the base.
I'm not going soft.
What do you say to moderates who are concerned about the economy, but they're also concerned about what you're saying about the 2020 election, the election denials?
I don't think they're concerned about what I say about 2020. I think the most important things by far right now to voters are inflation, crime, and the border.
Democratic Senator Mark Kelly will test that belief with a message of his own, labeling Masters as extreme on abortion, Social Security, and democracy.
Blake Masters has some beliefs that are just dangerous for Arizonans. You know, somebody who thinks they know better than everyone about everything, letting them make decisions for you is dangerous.
I am a registered Republican.
Election deniers at the top of the Republican ticket is why Keith Greenberg is at the Democrats' rally.
Republicans have some momentum, but I think Arizonans are smart enough to know how to vote properly and protect democracy.
The husband of former Arizona Congresswoman Gabby Giffords, Kelly is leaning into his experience as an astronaut and his service as a Navy combat veteran.
He is actually a Top Gun.
Propelled in these last hours by a Democratic powerhouse.
And if you've got election deniers serving as your governor, as your senator, as your secretary of state, as your attorney general, then democracy as we know it may not survive in Arizona. That's not an exaggeration. That is a fact.
In the Senate, Republicans need a net gain of just 1 seat to pick up control.
Republican Texas Governor Greg Abbott and Democrat Beto O'Rourke are steering into the finish of one of the most expensive midterm races in the country. With today's election, Abbott is seeking a record-tying 3rd term that would strengthen his prospects as a potential 2024 presidential candidate. O'Rourke was seeking an upset that would make him the first Democrat elected governor in Texas since 1990. Both candidates spent more than $100 million in a race that took on new intensity following the Uvalde school massacre. O'Rourke was making his 3rd run for office in as many cycles after a narrow loss for U.S. Senate in 2018 and flaming out of the Democratic presidential primary in 2020.
Voters in 5 states are deciding on Election Day whether to approve recreational marijuana. The proposals going before voters in Arkansas, Maryland, Missouri, North Dakota, and South Dakota on Tuesday could signal a major shift towards legalization in even the most conservative parts of the country. The proposals follow President Joe Biden's announcement that he'll pardon thousands of Americans convicted of simple possession. Recreational marijuana is legal in 19 states, and the 5 states with ballot measures already have legal marijuana programs. Another proposal on Colorado's ballot would allow the use of certain psychedelic substances. If passed, Colorado voters would be the second state after Oregon to decriminalize psychedelic mushrooms for those 21 and older. A ballot measure would create state-regulated healing centers for participants to experience the drug. Proponents hope Colorado will join Oregon in establishing a regulated system for substances the hallucinogens found. Colorado initiative would also allow an advisory board to eventually add other plant-based psychedelic drugs to the program. Supporters say psychedelics can treat depression, PTSD, anxiety, addiction, and other conditions. Critics argue decriminalization will jeopardize public safety.
Months of campaigning are culminating in midterm elections that will decide control of Congress and top governorships. Today's vote potentially will help shape economic policy, access to abortion, and even how elections are held, all while testing the political strength of President Joe Biden and his predecessor, Donald Trump. Neither Biden nor Trump is on the ballot, but key race outcomes will nonetheless be widely read as whether voters approve of the Democratic president's first 2 years and if they're willing to support a Republican Party the former president has increasingly molded in his own image.
As Americans go through this midterm election, what should the rest of the world be watching?
The major parties are putting a big emphasis on domestic issues in the final stretch of the U.S. midterm elections, but the outcome will shape the next 2 years of the Biden presidency, and that will impact U.S. relations around the globe. Midterm elections are often seen as a referendum on the party in power, in this case, the Democrats, who currently hold the White House and both houses of Congress. It is the first nationwide election since the January 6, 2021 insurrection at the U.S. Capitol, when supporters of then-President Trump sought to stop the certification of the election results. Democrats have sought to highlight the threat to U.S. and global democracy by Republican candidates at the federal, state, and local levels who continue to question the legitimacy of President Joe Biden's election. While polls indicate that the domestic economy will rank higher than threats to democracy and climate in voters' minds, a flip in congressional control could impact both. The Biden administration's Inflation Reduction Act, signed into law this summer, included $370 billion for clean energy and vehicles, but it passed Congress without the support of a single Republican. A Republican-controlled Congress would be able to undo the previously passed climate funding, but could thwart White House climate efforts for at least the next 2 years. And even though Republicans and Democrats have expressed support for Ukraine during its months-long invasion by Russia, some Republicans have suggested that they'd review U.S. military aid to Ukraine if they take control of Congress. The outcome of these elections will also shape the run-up to the next U.S. presidential election in 2024. If Democrats see steep losses, they may seriously consider a candidate other than President Biden. Republicans may look at close U.S. Senate races in Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Ohio, where former President Trump has pushed for GOP candidates to gauge whether his power over the party would hold in a potential bid for re-election. In Washington, I'm Karen Kifa.
Republican Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky has won a third term, defeating Charles Brooker, the first black Democratic nominee for the Senate in the Bluegrass state. Paul is a liberal-leaning former presidential candidate whose vision of limited government has made him one of the most contrarian voices in the Senate. Today's election outcome marked the second time Booker was rebuffed in a Senate bid. He barely lost the Democratic primary in a bid to unseat Senator Mitch McConnell in 2020. During the campaign, Paul ran TV ads touting his Senate record and conservative credentials, while Booker relied on social media and grassroots organizing to relentlessly attack the incumbent.
And now let's check in with the numbers from the Washington County Board of Elections for our state, regional, and local elections. This is as of 8:34 p.m., so we're about 15 minutes ahead of the last reporting. But what we have is 80% in from the precinct, so 40 out of 50. And we have Mike DeWine and John Hust for governor with 73% of the vote, with Nan Whaley and Cheryl L. coming up with only 26%. At the Attorney General, again, we have 80% of precincts reporting in at this time. And we have Jeffrey A. Crossman with 28% of the vote and Dave Yost with 71%. Auditor of the State, we have Keith Faber coming in with 70% and Taylor Sapling coming in with 29%. Secretary of the State, we have Chelsea Clark coming in with 28% and Frank LaRose coming in with 70%. Treasurer of the State, we have Scott Scourger coming in with 28% and Robert Sprague coming in with 71%. Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, we have Jennifer Berner coming in with 30% and Cheryl L. Kennedy coming in with 69%. Supreme Court Justice, we have 69% for Pat Fisher and Terry Jameson coming in with 30%.
In another Supreme Court Justice race, Pat DeWine, the Republican, at 69%, Marilyn Zayas at 30%. U.S. Senate race, Tim Ryan is the Democrat in the race, and he is at 31%. J.D. Vance is leading the race with 67.89%. In the congressional race, the representative to Congress in the 6th District, Bill Johnson, the Republican, 71%, as opposed to Louis Lyris with 28%. He's the Democrat. State Representative Tanya Conrath, 22%. Jay Edwards, the Republican, 77%. In the State Representative 95th District race, Don Jones, the Republican, is ahead, 67%. William Ryan, the Democrat, at 32%. In the Court of Appeals Judge 4th District, Christy Wilkins is running unopposed. She has 100%, obviously. The County Commissioner race, Kevin Ritter, he's also in an uncontested race. He has 15,613 votes, according to the Washington County Board of Elections, and same with County Auditor race, Matthew Livingood, with 15,761 votes.
Looking at the Court of Common Pleas Judge, General Division, we have Mark Henry coming in with 100% as that is an uncontested race. Proposed Amendment 1, courts to consider public safety when setting bail. We have 14,906 or 77.9% voting yes, as opposed to only 4,230 or 22% voting no. In the proposed Amendment 2, prohibit local governments allowing non-electors to vote. Total votes for yes are 15,683, which equates to roughly 82% of the vote, as opposed to no with 3,445 or 18%. Proposed bond issue and tax levy for Belpre City School Districts. Those for the bond issue and the levy are 1,571 or 46% of the vote, and those against the issue are 1,822 with 53% of the vote. Proposed tax levy replacement for Faring Township Fire and Emergency. We have those for the tax levy, 283 or 75.47% of the vote, and those against only 92 or 24.5%. Proposed tax levy replacement Faring Township for streets and roads. Those for the levy is 279 or 74.6%, and those against the levy are only 95 or 25.4%. Proposed tax levy renewal for Marietta Township Fire Protection. Those for the tax levy, we have 80%, and those against are only at 19. Special election by petition, local option election for Matamoros Grandview. Those in favor are 48 or 36.92%, and those against are at 82 or 63%.
For the proposed tax levy, which is a replacement in Newport Township for the fire and emergency protection, that is for the levy 165 votes, 64%. Against the tax levy, 91 votes, which is approximately 35%. Another proposed tax levy, a renewal in Palmer Township for EMS service. The vote for the tax levy, 58, which is 81% of the vote. Against the tax levy, 13, which is approximately 18% of the vote. In Warren Township, another proposed tax levy, a renewal for fire protection and EMS services. For the tax levy, 1,108 votes. about 70%. Against the tax levy, 458 votes at 29%. In Watertown Township, a proposed tax levy, which is a replacement for fire protection and EMS services. For the tax levy, 195 votes, which is 80%. Against the tax levy, 46 votes, approximately 19%. There is a West Muskingum Township proposed tax levy replacement for fire and EMS. For the tax levy, 433 votes. Against the tax levy, 179 votes. In Beverly Village, a proposed municipal income tax. For the income tax, 86 votes, approximately 58% of the voters. Against the income tax, 62 votes, about 41%. In Matamoros Village, a proposed tax levy renewal. For the tax levy, 38 votes, which is approximately 65%. Against the tax levy, 20 votes, which is approximately 34.48%. And those are the results from the Washington County Board of Elections about 8:34 this evening.
It is currently 9 p.m. here on Tuesday, November 8th. You're listening to WMRT 88.3 and WMRTFM.org. We hope you enjoyed listening to how our races are turning out this evening. Be sure to tune in to our sister station, WCMO TV, Channel 15, tomorrow at noon 30 for an update and news of the election coverage. In the meantime, if you would like to see how your current elections are coming out here in Ohio and West Virginia throughout the MOV, you can check out WTAP.org for all the latest updates. This is Cole Encore signing off.
I'm Marilee Morrow. Thanks for listening.